Hello everyone. I'd like to just talk about a couple things getting started with homework 2. So if I'm on the main page and I go here, let me grab the code for homework 2 real quick. So I will just go into my terminal. Let's say that I wanted to put this in my downloads directory. So I'd open my terminal in this folder and I'd clone this to get started. Okay, so let me cd into that directory. Now let's have a look around at what's there. So I gave you a makefile already. And what you're going to start by doing here is editing this file ellipse.cpp. If we look at the first part. So if I go back to the page and actually click on part 1, you're supposed to fill in these 3 methods, and I've given the specification for them in ellipse.h. Now, I have a program here called art.cpp that tests them. So it includes ellipse.h where these methods are specified. And then it calls them. So it has the method allocateImage that it calls to make, you're supposed to set up this 2-dimensional array that's used as the grayscale image. Then it draws 4 ellipses to make a little face of sorts with 2 eyes and a mouth. And then it writes the image to a file called art.png. Now this file though is not going to work straight up. If I go back to my terminal and I type, so that's supposed to be the file art.cpp. So if I type make art, okay, that depends on ellipse.o, so it's going to build this object file for ellipse. So if I type make art, see first it makes that object file for the ellipse, but then it says undefined reference to all this stuff. Well, why is that? Undefined reference. Remember, that is a linker error. So this is not a syntax error, this is a compile time error. All the syntax is correct. I've used the correct contract. I followed the contract for these methods. Allocate image, takes a width and a height, returns a 2-dimensional array reference. Same thing with draw ellipse. All that is fine syntactically. But I never actually, now I had a forward declaration for all these methods, but I never actually had a definition. This ellipse.cpp file is completely empty. Alright, so you're going to have to fill in the methods before the object file actually has anything in it. So right now this ellipse.object file does not actually have the definitions of any of the methods compiled into it. So we won't be able to use art.cpp right away. But you might be wondering, how do I test the methods as I'm making them then? Should I be running ellipse.o? Okay, well I can't actually do that. Whoops, I didn't mean to open that. If I go back here and I try to run ellipse.o, it says permission denied. Okay. Well, you can't run an object file. Remember, an object file is like something that can be plugged in later. In order to actually run code, you need a program that has a main in it. So let me go ahead and I'll just make a file called test.cpp. Okay, I'll put it in this folder, and I'll make a main. And if I actually want to test the file I made, let's say I wanted to test things that were in ellipse.h, I'll have to include that at the top. And yeah, I guess I'll just do it the C++ way for now. I'll include IOStream. Alright, so here is a very basic program with a main. It's going to include ellipse.h. To make it, I could manually write out the command. I could say g++, I'll output to a file called test.cpp, and I'll link in, okay, so this is supposed to depend on ellipse.h, so I should link in the object file that got made for ellipse.cpp. So object files are made for CPP files that are implementations of header files that don't necessarily have a main. Okay. So I'll link in my ellipse.o, and it goes and it makes that file and I can run it just fine. But again, if I try to use something in the main here that's I haven't actually defined, like allocate image, So if I tried to say UNT image equals allocate image, maybe I'll say 400 by 400. I'm going to get an undefined reference error again if I try to do this, okay? Because I haven't actually defined allocate image. Now I'm not going to show you how to do this now because that's what you're actually supposed to do in the homework. But let's say that I wanted to, I don't know, I'll make a different method. I'll make a method just void print greeting. Okay? So actually here I'm just going to do the forward declaration. So let's say, you know, this method prints a greeting. So this is called the forward declaration. I need to actually then define this in ellipse.cpp. So let's say that I was just going to have it, now maybe I'll do it the C way. Oh, no, I'll do the C++ way again. Include IOStream using namespace CP. So maybe I'll just see how hello world. And then maybe I'll loop through 10 times and print out these numbers. Alright, and I'll print a line break at the end. So let's say that's the method I wanted to use, and I wanted to test it out. So I've defined it, or I've declared forward declaration in ellipse.h. I've defined it here. Now I can go to test and I can use it. I can say print greeting. Well, if I go back and I try to compile this, it's not going to work. That is because I need to remake the object file, right? I need to update ellipse.o. I've added some code here, so I need to remake the ellipse object file that's going to get plugged in. So that is g++-c ellipse.cpp. That is going to update. If I look now, the timestamp on ellipse.o is more recent than all the other files. I just updated that. So now I can go and I can make this, and I run it, and it does exactly that. Now, of course, if I wanted to automate this, make it a little easier, I'll make an entry in the makefile for it. It's very similar to Arch because it just depends on ellipse.o, the object file. So I'll just copy and paste that, and in the selection there, I'll just replace Arch with test. And so now if I say make test, it'll just automatically do those commands over again. Nothing to be done now, but if I were to update something in here, let's say maybe I printed the first 20 numbers instead. Well, now if I type make test, it's going to notice that it's going to go up to ellipse.o and notice that ellipse.cpp has changed. So it'll actually rebuild the object file there. And then it'll rerun this command. So now if I type make test again, just as I promised, it remakes the ellipse object file. And then it remakes the test. So if I run the test now, I print out the first 20 numbers starting at 0. Alright, so that is a lot of moving parts in C++, but once you get used to it, and especially once you start to leverage the makefile to help automate this process, it shouldn't be too bad. Having these kind of forward declarations and the files to go with them actually helps you to stay organized, because everything for the ellipse is kind of contained and encapsulated in these two files. And I can just use it anywhere I want. I can use it in test.cpp, I can use it in art.cpp, and I only have to make this object file once, and then I can plug it into art or test. So I'd encourage you to test your methods one by doing something like this. All right. If you have any questions, please post on Discord and let me know. Good luck and enjoy.